And so it began. I knew this project would challenge me thoroughly, so I consulted every book within my disposal on the subject of the world religions. I searched page after dry page, searching for the juicy innards that I so sought. Anything I could find, anything that would help me form my argument.
Give us the boy.
I even attempted transcendental means to insight, attempting there to glean the wisdom from the cosmos, but in vain. It did not seem to matter what I tried. Hours passed, and I was no farther along in my research. It seemed hopeless until...
What research?
Cosmological arguments are made very clear by a lot of theists. I will not be taking the Kalam argument. I will rather be taking the Thomist cosmological argument that takes a look at motion. It essentially relies on the same thing Aristotle was relying on with the problem of infinite regression, that there is not sufficient cause for anything to exist if merely its cause is something that requires a cause. So to begin, the reason I want to defend Lutheran Christianity more than anything else, while at the same time using the cosmological argument from Thomas Aquinas, is that Lutheran theology presents the concept of the Trinity in the most comprehensible form that I have seen. And they build God on the necessity of being three persons within one entity. When we're talking cosmology and we satisfy the problem of infinite regression, the problem that we can't explain the existence of anything with just something that has itself a cause, we need to understand God at least in one way as something that is eternal. Eternal means without time, outside of time, timeless, so on. This means that a facet of God exists outside the scope of time. A common problem that I hear with the cosmological argument that has God outside time will be, doesn't God have to be an agent of time or in time in order to create something? The difficulty with that is a misunderstanding of time. Time is a moment. Time is a moment of change. It is this state to this state without there anything in between. That in-between bit is the actual time. When two points like this occur, we have at least the illusion of linear time, and that's as far as we can take it conceptually as humans. Would you need to exist within time in order to change something? No. You could be the cause of time itself. We're talking about singularity before, say, the Big Bang, and not entertaining the notion that before the Big Bang there were other universes that just bumped into this one. Talk about the absolute Big Bang, the very first whatever it happens to be. Before that, you got singularity. Within singularity, there's nothing to threaten singularity. That is to say, there's nothing to make singularity unstable if there is but a single thing in existence. And the problem with that is that there is no change. Singularity is necessarily an eternal form, an eternal being, without necessarily being a person, a guy with a beard, but a thing that exists within reality, yet is not within the confines of time. As soon as something begins to change, thus time has its first presence within existence. What caused the Christian God to cause the rest of reality? Nothing but God itself. And that's incredibly important to understand. Nothing other than God. And this is a cosmological argument that can be used for any religion, certainly. So this next part I want to talk about a little bit is the argument against other world religions. The reason Christianity is favorable to both Islam and Judaism is that Islam and Judaism are based on a prophet. And when we talk about the notion of God, we're talking about something that is all-powerful, something that doesn't need anyone's help, per se. However, in both Judaism and Islam, Judaism and Islam, we are to believe that a prophet is the mouthpiece of an all-powerful being. And it just doesn't follow logically that that would have to be the case. The alternative that Christianity gives us is that God himself manifested within physical form. And whether the reality that the story of Christ is metaphoric or historical, the fact that this is a religion that recognizes that it's God himself speaking to the people rather than through some henchman of some kind, we see a more accurate behavior or more predictable behavior from what we could expect. More expectable behavior from an all-powerful God. That's what I was trying to say. The problem with Far East spiritualism is they're going to use proverbs and other uses of language that ignore the laws of language. Language is given to us and meaningful to us because of an inherent grammatical principle that is inherent within any human language. Even computer languages that are not spoken. All of these things have a lexicon to them that is not at all unique. It's shared between each and every language. This commonality gives rise to logic. That's why the French are just capable of being just as logical as an Englishman or an American or a Japanese. Logic itself is based on grammar, and though there are many different world languages with many different specifics of grammar, the underlying lexicon is precisely the same, and it gives rise to the laws of logic, like the law of the excluded middle, the law of non-contradiction, and the law of arguably identity, if you want that third one to be thrown in there. When we look at Eastern proverbs, they ignore that. They use the communicative power of language without actually seeing it through robustly. Something like the Zen master on his deathbed will say something like, from bathtub to bathtub, the bathtub from which I was born into and bathed at birth, and then the bathtub that I go into after I die to be cleaned before burial. The Zen master says, between bathtub to bathtub, I have uttered stuff and nonsense. And that's it. What we can take from this is that even that statement is stuff and nonsense, and why is he even bothering telling it to us if he's just wasting our time? What kind of Zen master of spirituality, would commit his own fallacy? And this kind of problem is repeated throughout these kinds of Zen proverbs and Taoist proverbs and so on. And it creates a very difficult situation. If you want to talk in poetry, then just call it poetry, but you can't have it both ways. That'll do for today, I guess. There's more to talk about, but there's plenty also to respond to so far. I'm looking forward to your video replies and comments.